Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and I'm going to do a quick review here of the new Gonjasufi album, Callus. Gonjasufi is a desert mystic, a singer, a songwriter, producer, multi-instrumentalist, and he broke out in 2010 with the really good record of Sufi and a Killer. He was kind of put on by Flying Lotus. You know, a lot of people were paying attention to him because of his appearance on Flying Lotus's music, and Flying Lotus lent some production to this latest, or that big breakout record of his. Not the latest record, I didn't want to say that. But moving on. And not too long after, he dropped a couple of projects that were just super lackluster. It just seemed like Sufi and the Killer, as good as it was just kind of a fluke, unfortunately. I mean, the Muzzle EP, or album, just seemed so much less adventurous. The production was super lackluster. And now this new record over here has been like, I want to say like, I guess 4 years in the making, I suppose. And while it has a lot of tracks, there's a lot of material on this album, there's nothing much else going for it, in my opinion. To me, this record is just like demos, the album. There's a lot of different stylistic ground covered on this thing. You know, there's some tracks that seem like they have more of a psych rock vibe, some tracks that seem like they have more of a synthetic, almost new wavy vibe, or maybe kind of like a goth industrial kind of thing. It's all very lo-fi, it's all very noisy, and intentionally so. You know, it's an abrasive record, and texturally I find the album pretty stimulating. You know, there's a lot of different sounds, some of them harsh, a lot of them very dirty and tattered. There's definitely an ugly beauty to this record that I think Gonjasufi was going for. An ugly beauty that I think was similar to that of A Sufi and a Killer. But the thing is, some of the songs and the production on A Sufi and a Killer, I was really enamored with the production there. I felt that the way the beats were sort of put together required a lot more skill than what is actually being exemplified on Callus over here. While demos aren't necessarily a bad thing, you know, for example, that new Kendrick Lamar record, Untitled Unmastered, loved the shit out of that. But the thing is, the performances and the songwriting were so good that it sort of overtook the fact that the song sounded a little muddy and a little noisy. Being muddy and noisy and just, again, texturally simulating is really all that this album has going for it. Gonjasufi doesn't really have the compositional talent or really the vocal talent to kind of make his ideas translate and sound captivating. I mean, he certainly is an eccentric and an idiosyncratic vocalist, but I wouldn't exactly call him a skilled vocalist. You know, he makes some weird, funny sounds, but he doesn't really back those weird, funny sounds up with great vocal melodies or, I don't know, good performances. It all just seems like a little overly indulgent, directionless, and I don't know, just kind of navel-gazing a lot of the time. I'm not really sure what else to say about this album. You know, it's just kind of like a series of motifs, a series of tracks that just kind of are bridges to nowhere. Again, I say demos, the album, as if that's like some kind of grand statement or something like that, when in fact it's just kind of like really unambitious in the long run, which is a little disappointing because I thought this might be a little different. I liked some of the tasters from this album that I had heard, and I thought the album art from this record was actually pretty grim and intense, and I was like, wow, you know, this looks like some crazy hardcore, you know, zine punk shit from the 80s or 90s. Might be pretty cool. Not that I thought that he was going to go in that direction, but maybe we were looking for a bit of a harder, edgier aesthetic on this record, given the album cover and the album title, when in fact it's, you know, just a tad underwhelming, unfortunately. It's an album that totally makes sense. That, oh, you would hear like 30 seconds of a couple of tracks and be like, hey, that's pretty cool, you know, sounds interesting. But once you actually kind of get a full panoramic view of the songs, it's kind of like, wow, there's really not much to these tracks. You know, once you get past those 30 seconds or a minute that's semi-interesting. It just kind of doesn't know where to bring itself. You know, some of these songs actually might have been interesting if some of these redundant parts actually transitioned to other short songs, and then you could have made a full song or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, this thing is sort of not only unambitious, but it just sort of skips out on these tracks that have a little potential. It's almost like it has ADD in a sense as well. Yeah, I don't really know if I have much more to say about it than that, unfortunately. But if you're liking the record, you like the record. I mean, I certainly understand in a sense with it being as noisy and as eccentric as it is. But to me, that's not really backed up with anything. You know, it's just kind of a bit of a crazy moment that doesn't add up to much for me personally. But those are my thoughts on the album. What did you think of this record? If you did give it a listen, did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano, Gonjasufi, Callus, forever. And Callus, Callus, I get it. Bit of wordplay there. No need to leave an angry comment saying, hey, Anthony, you don't know how to say the album title. You don't get the album title, Anthony. Have a good one.